Whenever life starts to feel like it's getting bad, or business feels like it's falling apart, or relationships feel like they're burning down, one of the things that I like to remember, I learned from Dr. Clare Graves, who is the founder of what is now called spiral dynamics. This is a human development model. This is a way to look at our journey as human beings, of our existence, our consciousness, our growth, our expansion, our retraction, and try to make sense of some reference points that can be really helpful. Now, one of my favorite parts of Dr. Graves' work was his analysis of existing models to describe or explain the human experience. He went through behaviorism, which is the core idea is that behavior is learned through environmental conditioning, through rewards and punishments. He went through psychoanalysis, Freudian psychology, where behavior is driven by unconscious drives and especially related to sex, aggression, the ego, childhood, things like this. Went through humanism, which the core idea is people are inherently good and self-directed and capable of growth, but we need to focus on meaning and self-actualization and the whole person. The model of cognitive psychology, that human behavior is shaped by processes, beliefs, thoughts, reasoning patterns. Existentialism, that humans are free and responsible and searching for meaning in the world. Or even cybernetics, systems theories, that humans function within complex adaptive systems and that behavior is shaped by feedback loops and interdependent structures. And of all these models and several others, cynicism and other things, all these isms to look at the world and make sense of our existence, one of the things that stood out to me so much in his work was the model that turned out to not just be the most helpful, but the one that turned out to be the most accurate way of looking at the human experience. And that was optimism. Optimism was actually the one that won out. Not because the other ones were wrong, okay? Dr. Graves didn't look at these and say they were wrong. He just saw how incomplete they were. Each had its own accuracies with its own altitude, its own spot that it was in. It provided helpful, constructive elements, but oftentimes incomplete. And so looking for kind of the one that could work for everyone turned out to be optimism. It was the most accurate way to look at human existence, and not because optimism is naive. We can see the things that are going on. We can see the breakdowns. We can see the regressions. We can see the problems. But at the end of the day, what Dr. Clare Graves discovered, and what I believe deeply about optimism, is that when humans are free to face their life conditions honestly, with adequate resources, that they adapt upward. They don't just change, they expand, they complexify, they create more ability and agility to have a more full human experience. Optimism over and over again allows for the creation of better ways to live once basic needs are met and not before that. It creates more inclusive worldviews because as we expand and we grow, our current worldviews become too small, not because they were wrong, but because we now have more capacity to be more inclusive. And our experience of breakdown and breakthrough in rhythmic cycles aren't stuck. We're not doomed. We're not devolving. We get the opportunity to be able to look for the emergence of what's coming next, the emergence of what we're looking for. The challenge is today we experience something called pop optimism. This is the just think positive kind of ideology, the everything happens for a reason dismissal, the good vibes only isolation, and the altruistic, if you believe you can achieve kind of perspective. The risk here is that this is very performative. Okay, we smile through the collapse. It can be very shallow. We ignore the shadow and the system, the wound. We start to redact and filter and censor parts of our experience. And we start trying to grasp for and desperately seek a linear solution. And we break down under this pressure, and parts of us disappear in this crisis. It ends up masking fear with sparkles. And that's one of the challenges with what pop optimism has become. However, the core optimism, the model that Dr. Graves saw as being tremendously accurate and helpful, comes from a different place. Optimism is not uh, encompassed by positivity, it's optimal. Positivity is involved as one of the elements of the full, honest human experience. Optimism is being able to find the breakthrough after the breakdown, not try to find the breakthrough to prevent the breakdown. It is hard fought and hard won to seek the optimal way to approach the full, honest human experience. It is emergent, okay? It doesn't demand belief. It unfolds as the life conditions are experienced and as they are met and needs are met. It's layered. Okay? It understands that we evolve, that the moment we think we know who we are, we immediately have an outdated version of ourself. We have an outdated version of our nervous system as soon as we think, I got it. I know this. And that's part of what makes the human experience so incredible and so diverse and so amazing is the moment we think we've got it figured out, we immediately don't. It's also, in true optimism, radically inclusive because it doesn't bypass pain. When we exclude others or parts of ourselves, when we metabolize that, or excuse me, when we calcify that, it is because we are bypassing. We're bypassing fear. We're bypassing pain. We're trying to use pop optimism to filter out and just look at the things that we want to look at rather than look at the whole honest experience. But when that's allowed and it metabolizes and it's able to be worked through and honestly met and felt and released, it can start to collapse wars. It can start to allow us to feel more human, more inclusive, which I believe can only allow us to come up with better solutions, can only allow us to come up with better opportunities and with more collaboration and understanding. Also, optimism is not final. There's no end point. There's no arrival or perfect plateau. And for many of us with dysregulated nervous systems that have been incentivized for the finish line, we've been willing to abandon ourselves because we've been told it's worth it once you arrive, once you get there. Optimism disintegrates this idea. It puts us into the perpetual now of our lives. It puts us in this place where living is done now and openly and honestly. And some of the things that we have buried, we're going to want to start feeling slowly and constructively because the very reason they were buried, the very reason we needed this pop optimism was because it was too much. It was too much to feel. It was too much to meet other people's expectations and hold space for. It was too fast. It was too much. It was too scary. And so optimism is about opening up that burial and being able to feel through that slowly, being able to feel through that constructively to allow for a more honest, which is a more optimal, coming from optimism, way of living. Yes, to look for the good. Yes, to look for the optimal solutions to the honest experience. And that's where we have lost some of what we're doing. We've lost the idea that the method is you. We've lost that transformation doesn't need permission. It just wants presence. Just as your brain, your neocortex can't make your body digest food and make your heart pump. It does it autonomically. It can certainly do things that get in the way of that. It can try to sell you certainty to be able to somehow censor and bypass and ignore parts of your life only to the detriment that often isn't realized until much later. So what do we do with this? What do we do with what Dr. Graves was talking about in in surrendering to and embracing optimism? We reclaim the world, not in a sense of justice or right doing. Those are more noble masks for war, for conflict, for needing to be right. But if we speak of optimism not as wishful thinking, but as a discipline of emergence, that's what spiral dynamics was all about, was the idea that things don't end. greater things emerge. And there's a cycle to that. There's an upward, ongoing spiral to that. And when we can embrace this discipline of emergence rather than try to redact and censor our fears and our compensations, trying to do everything we can to not need to acknowledge what we've buried because it was too much, not because we weren't enough, but because what was modeled for us, the spaces we didn't have, the time we weren't allowed to take was too much. If we can teach a deep trust that life wants to evolve through us, suddenly we're not having this argument about whether life is happening to you or whether life is happening for you, which are two sides of the uh, same bypassing coin, same illusion of life. We get to honesty, which is not life happening to you or life happening for you. It is life happening with you and through you. And that's what optimism about. It's not about looking away. It's about looking deeper and remembering that something great is emerging, as scary as it might seem to watch something we were used to start to go away.